Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Let's take a look at Samurai Cop from 1991. A not so well known movie unless you're a B-rated martial arts movie fan like myself. There are quite a few B-rated martial arts movies that do stand out to me, this being one of them. Not everyone is as successful as Steven Seagal or Jean-Claude Van Damme or Chuck Norris, I get it. Even though their movies aren't martial arts movies, really, they are action movies because they don't put strong emphasis on martial arts. They're just action movies. But B-rated martial arts movies have heavy emphasis on style of martial art. That is shown, like in this movie, I will be walking through here. I honestly don't know what kind of style of martial art that Matt Hannon pursued or acted in. And written and directed by Amir Shervan, who is probably dead by now. So the movie opens up with this bald Japanese man, Okamura, played by Gerald Okamura, who looks like he has been in a few other known martial arts movies, as well as the movie's villain, or the villain's right-hand man, Yamashita, played by Robert Zadar. I bet all of you have seen him in Tango and Cash from the 90s, known for his abnormally large jawline and his Steven Seagal kind of look here. You can tell he was always a fan. Now Okamura tells Yamashita that he doesn't have an established gang and now some nice 90s acting, and Yamashita mentions Fujiyama, the other main villain of the movie, who you will see soon. And here he comes, Fujiyama, played by Cranston Komuro, and he can only speak Japanese here, as Okamura has been told that they must fight. They must fight the other Chinese gangs. So Yamashita and the henchwoman here, I don't know her name, and some other guys are walking here towards the restaurant establishment and meet up with Mr. Lee, leader of a Chinese gang, but he has his translator here to say no, that he will not be working with the Japanese gang operated by Fujiyama, who we just saw.
In no way we go under Fujiyama's flag.
Now Yamashita has stabbed Mr. Lee, and now a fight between the two groups, and that's it. The Chinese are done now. So now back to work, and we finally meet the hero of the movie, Joe Marshall, played by Matt Hannon, or Matt Caritas, as well as his partner Frank Washington, played by Mark Fraser, as they drive up to bust a cocaine deal. And yeah, they are in LA. So Joe tells Frank that he got the cocaine message from someone of the Chinese group, which we all know was killed by Fujiyama's group, which are usually called the Katana gang. You know, like the sword.
Oh, it's up and ready. You just keep it warm.
It's warm and ready.
So they now spot the blue van belonging to the Katana gang, and the two walk there, and now Frank contacts Peggy, the cop in the helicopter, as she spots the blue van driving on the highway, and now Joe calls him to tell Peggy to keep an eye on the van as it's headed to the Los Angeles Marina. And now these three guys are taking a boat, looks like they're the cocaine buyers, and get there, and the dealers are there, stopped along with two other guys hiding in the back of the van, ready to kill the buyers. And what I've noticed so far is that Peggy has been ignoring Frank this entire time, but only responding to Joe. You guys already understand why. So back at the cocaine deal, the exchange is done, and Joe and Frank have stopped here, and now the blue van has driven away, and now back on its tail have now located the van, and now somewhat speedy pursuit, and the guys from the back of the van are now shooting back at Joe and Frank, and Joe runs over him accidentally. Now they drive down this hill as the chase continues. So one of them is dead and falls out of the van, and now the chase comes to an end, and Frank kills the driver. Now the van is all blown up with the driver all on fire.
Good job, guys. Call for a celebration.
Yeah, it's not what you're thinking. It's actually Joe will be the one celebrating as he's having sex with Peggy. It's a 2-minute long scene, but I'm going to skip it, so watch it on your own. So back at Fujiyama's, and we see Yamashita as well as the redhead henchwoman, whose name I still don't know. It's kind of looking like that Jean-Claude Van Damme movie here, Double Impact, also released in 1991. The main villain is Japanese, and he also has a female henchwoman. Check it out, good stuff. So Fujiyama is yelling, and yes, he can speak English, and he's known as the Samurai, and Yamashita knows his name is Joe Marshall, the LA cop that is referred to as the Samurai. Joe hasn't even done a single samurai movie yet, and how does he have that title already? Well, then again, it is a low-budget movie, it doesn't have to be perfect. And yeah, he speaks fluent Japanese and trained by Japanese martial artists in Japan. Sounds very similar to someone else we know that has that exact same kind of background, hint hint. Okay, so Fujiyama tries so hard to be angry here and wants Joe Marshall's head on the piano, and Yamashita will guarantee that. So the acting is terrible, but the movie's great. Better than crap today, that's for sure. the crap movies that they make today. Now back at headquarters, Joe is telling a story of him having sex, and of course Peggy's a little embarrassed. And now Mox is police commissioner, Captain Romer, and here he is, played by Dale Cummings, and now has been asked to go see the captain in his office with Frank. And now the two are at the hospital with the burnt van driver being interfered with, or being injected with something, and they go in to check on him. As the two walk in to ask the nurse, who is dressed like she's a doctor, and starts flirting with Joe.
Would you like to touch what you see?
Now she asks Joe out, and even more funny stuff.
Would you like to me?
Okay, wow, wasn't expecting that. Now she touches his crotch. What a creepy weirdo. And tells her nothing is there.
Have you been circumcised?
Oh, it gets better.
I want bigger.
Hey, I have,
Now Frank steps in, but we know he's not getting anything. And now they're leaving and tells the officer here to keep watch, as there are 3 other officers which are going to come soon. What did he just say, man? Now he's flirting with the nurse. Now Fujiyama's henchwoman walks in posing as a nurse as she pretends to change the trash bags, but she's really there to kill the burnt van driver, and inside the basket is Yamashita with a katana. Like the group he's part of. What a weird death sound we hear, as well as the sound of him sounding like he's playing with himself. So she wipes the blood off of the katana, and Yamashita actually cuts his head off. Okay, looks like Fujiyama wasn't kidding about having the head on his piano, but we really thought he meant Joe Marshall's head. And now they sneak out, and now the officer here checks on the van driver and sees that his head has been cut off, and now the security guard is trying to ask the henchwoman where she's going. So they take the elevator downstairs, and now she looks through and tells him to go now. Now kicks one of the 3 police officers sent by Joe and Frank that spotted Yamashita and that henchwoman, and then the other one and the other 2 guys that were already watching outside, and they escape. Now back at headquarters, Captain Romer is pissed off that Frank brought in a useless cop from San Diego. Yeah, he's referring to Joe Marshall, and that the guys at the hospital have been brutally beaten because of Joe's presence on the squad. So he wants Joe to leave, but Frank steps in, and there's no problem with Joe being here, so the captain tells him to get out.
You son of a bitch! Come back here, you motherfucker!
And he smiles and closes his eyes. And now we are inside the HQ office, as Johnson over here tells Joe that Fujiyama hangs out at the Blue Lagoon restaurant pretty often. Now Frank asks what Katana means, as well as the other 2 Japanese gangs are also present, the Shinjuku and Ginza gangs, as they hit the Katana gang and are willing to work with the police. And Joe tells Johnson over here that they're scared of Katana, and that's why they're easy to work with. And Joe wants Peggy to come along, but she can't. Now we're at the Blue Lagoon restaurant. Fujiyama and the main crew of the Katana are also having lunch, as Fujiyama gives his girl, Jennifer, who will come in handy soon. As Tony now arrives, looking like Fujiyama's lawyer. Now Joe and Frank have also walked in and spot Fujiyama instantly and see Joe hesitating here for a second, asking a question. And tells Fujiyama that he's a cop and that this funny music plays. Instead of Fujiyama getting up, Yamashita gets up, like he's the boss here. And yeah, the guy Tony's Fujiyama's lawyer, and now Fujiyama says that he's got nothing on him. And when Yamashita is still pissed off, and now the lawyer is threatening to sue Joe and the police precinct he works for.
Hey, counselor. You still have 3 or 4 hours before the courthouse closes.
Okay, got it. That was pretty funny. And now Joe gives off a fancy threat towards Fujiyama's lawyer if he doesn't stop. And since this is a cassette / low budget movie, Joe always has to include the girl's presence and calls Fujiyama a geek. But this is all part of the plan he will set up to capture Fujiyama real soon. So, okay, that was weird. So
stop fooling around, you simp.
Joe just leaves, and these guys just look around. Now, Joe asks the waiter here of the name of the girl and tells her name is Jennifer and that her mom owns a restaurant. And asks about Jennifer's dad, and this is the waiter's response.
Bang! Killed?
Okay, he's acting super goofy here, as you know how the 90s are. Even though Joe tells the waiter to tell Jennifer that he finds her lovely for him, and yeah, he will help her get Jennifer, and tells him his first name, Alfonso Rafael Federico Sebastian, and recommends his cop cousin to help Joe. Funny how some of the movie looks like someone took a piss on it, and some parts of it looks clear. Especially with the close-ups with Alfonso here. So Joe and Frank leave and see Yamashita come out to watch the two leave. And let's go of the three guys to defeat Joe, and Frank, like he's letting kids go on to an amusement park ride. Now some fighting against Joe and Frank when Yamashita's guys. Not very samurai-like kind of fighting for a guy who lived in Japan and who can speak fluent Japanese, but this guy takes out the katana. Now Frank shoots the guy. Now Joe chops up this guy's arm off, and that does not look low budget at all. Now Yamashita starts shooting and purposely shoots his guys so they wouldn't walk and throw a grenade, as these two now hide behind the car. And yeah, Frank notices Yamashita kill his own men, and now the squad car that came in isn't burned. And back at the police station, Captain Roma is pissed off for some reason, maybe because Fujiyama's lawyer is standing right there, and again with the famous Clark Gable line.
But frankly, I don't give a damn.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
And Captain Roma is probably the best police captain we've had, and cusses so much here to make Fujiyama's lawyer to get out. Next scene, Joe is walking towards to what looks like the Blue Lagoon restaurant, and these two are just walking, or just watching him walk in, and one of them pulls out her cell phone and contacts Okamura, who we haven't seen since the beginning of the movie. And yes, Jennifer is working there, and yeah, he is here to see her. Okay, so he wants to get in her pants, but he wants to know how she owns a restaurant, and she tells Joe that her dad used to own the restaurant and that he was $400,000 in debt. Maybe that's why he committed suicide, and her mother met Fujiyama and he paid back the $400,000 for those two. I wonder what her mom did to get that money, but Fujiyama practically owns the Blue Lagoon after paying that debt, and now Joe tells her that Fujiyama used illegal money to pay back the loan, as well as him wanting to ask her out as she makes excuses and plays hard to get. And, I mean, just say yes so that the guys could capture Fujiyama. So she finally agrees to Sunday at last, and what looks like the interior of a nightclub or strip club, as well as three guys coming out to threaten Joe, and now beats up both guys up inside the club and runs after the last one. And now gets him on the ground and does the palm restraint there, just like Steven Seagal from Hard to Kill. And now he tells Joe that Okamura sent him, and now back on the chase for Fujiyama's connected associates as they target Okamura's safe house here. And Johnson's now back, and Peggy's there too, and now tells. And Frank is concerned who will report to Captain Roma over this mission, and Joe tells Frank to do it. And now funny joke which I can't play, with Peggy being horny for Frank now. And now she finally pays attention to him.
You and I got nothing to do. Let's fuck.
Shut up.
So Joe and Frank now sneak into the house that may now belong to Okamura. Okamura's guards playing cards, and Peggy and Johnson are also there making their way inside Okamura's house. And also inside the house, Okamura is there with a girl begging him to buy her things as long as she satisfies him. And now two more guards are around and Joe knocks them out. And now sneak up on Okamura's window and we see this.
You're under arrest. Stop! Charlie, get your gun.
And finally interrupt him having sex, and Okamura escapes with a briefcase. And his indoor guards have noticed shooting, and now Johnson also shoots the outdoor guard. Running through the house as they chase Okamura while shooting more guards. And Okamura gives up and drops the gun and does the whole "you gonna shoot me or fight me like a man" kind of bullshit, and does the whole samurai routine here. And now a whole fight scene here between Joe and Okamura. And it does get a little too much here, or too long, as Okamura now takes out these weapons you would see in a ninja video game. Now Joe is acting like he's in the UFC, is in the UFC here, and has Okamura in a tight spot, and it's tapping out, and yeah, broke his arm. And as Frank tries to cuff Okamura, he grabs a gun from his pants and tries to shoot Joe, but Okamura ends up getting killed, and now there goes a lead witness that can tell Joe about Fujiyama's activities. Honestly, Matt Hannon kind of reminds me of that B-rated martial arts actor, Joe Lara, the Cannon Films guy, or Cannon Films action guy. A lot of you probably never heard of him. He died in a plane crash recently in 2021. So back at Fujiyama's apartment, as Yamashita is also there telling Fujiyama that they have new enemies and has outlined all the police people involved with the interference of Fujiyama, including Joe Marshall, as he puts emphasis that he isn't known as a samurai cop once again. So Fujiyama thinks that bribing Captain Roma is a good idea, but Yamashita says that would be too hard since killing them will be a better option. Now Yamashita has a new idea and tells Fujiyama that he will send some people from New York to have their legs broken. So Joe, Frank, Peggy, Johnson, and Roma. So now Frank is back somewhere wearing his cap as he's doing something with this guy. I don't know what exactly. But yeah, now a group of these guys are now looking for Yamashita, or Joe. I don't think I've ever seen Joe with a ponytail yet. And now some of them go upstairs and this guy wants to take a nap and the others watch the girl. And yeah, it is Joe as the girl pushes the alarm button. This guy looks like Vincent Price here asks if Joe is expecting anybody, and now he gets up and sees the two guys coming up to start shooting. Honestly, I stick with the longer hair Joe, just saying suits you better. Yeah, you can tell this movie's super low budget, takes you 3 times to shoot a guy to get him killed, even though he's not wearing a bulletproof vest. Now Joe goes back outside on top of the roof and we see this guy, who I actually thought was Frank at first, resting his elbow on a stool, waiting to shoot at Joe. As Joe climbs down the roof, we see that the sound of a gun has also changed, or Joe's gun has changed. Now sex in between the redhead henchwoman and Yamashita. I'll skip that too, so watch it on your own. And now Yamashita gets a call from Fujiyama and now goes to a party. Now we see Joe Marshall at this church on Sunday, like Jennifer said, she's at church on Sundays, waiting for her all suited up, and his hair's in a ponytail now. And Jennifer's driver's watching everything, and now he takes her to his house. So the driver tells Yamashita he saw Jennifer with the samurai cop. How exciting. So back at Joe's house, looks like he made food at home. Now she asks him how she would come home with him.
Great.
Because I really wanted to impress you.
Stop fooling around, you simp.
So now we are at Johnson's house as he is lifting weights next to his wife, as Fujiyama is getting rid of and magically just breaks into his house. No breaking in, no sound of that, none of that. I don't think alarm systems were common in the 90s. But yeah, it is a low budget movie. As Yamashita brings out his katana, as well as now one of the guys gets a hold of Johnson's wife and now threatens Johnson. His name is John Johnson, pretty funny name there. But he kills Johnson's wife because he doesn't know, or he's not telling where Joe Marshall is. But he told Yamashita to go check on Peggy since she's been at Joe's house plenty of times because of sex. Or maybe that was her house, I don't know. Now suddenly Johnson is stabbed. So Yamashita is headed next to Frank's house, leaving Johnson next to his dead wife. So back on the date, we see Joe and Jennifer going out for a swim and just kiss. Now the next scene, we see Yamashita's guys already inside Frank's house as he comes out of the shower. Now it rips off his towel and this guy takes out a knife and is ready to cut off his dick.
But I can relieve you of this gift.
Frank points towards his closet for Joe's address and looks like his suit jacket, or looks to his suit jacket. And the other jackets as well, as Frank aims for the scissors and stabs the guy who has the knife on him. Now Frank takes out the gun and shoots the other guy, again, 3 times to make sure the guy's dead. And now kills the other one. Now Jennifer's ready to dive in with Joe. Frank is trying to call Joe, now she's hungry. And back at Peggy's house, that she is making some food as Yamashita and his guys are actually shown breaking into her house. This time, and they walk in as they grab Peggy. As she fights back, and you can tell she's been spending way too much time with Joe Marshall, samurai cop, and now Yamashita grabs Peggy from the back, and now they grab a hold of her as he grabs a pan with oil in it and drops it on her to make her talk where Joe is. And now that they got Joe's address out of her and a bunch of burns she will never be able to get rid of ever. And yeah, back at Joe's, he brings her out a birthday cake, and now she's happy and now some more sex, which I will skip again. And that sex scene was at least 4 or 5 minutes. So now we see this white car being driven as Frank's still trying to call Joe as he just finished with Jennifer, as he finally answers it. And Frank tells him to get out of his house and comes out Yamashita out of the car as well as guys. And Joe spots him and comes outside with Jennifer and shoots the guy. And now some more shooting, as well as Yamashita and his guy are looking around and see Joe escaping in this red car. Now Jennifer's back at Blue Lagoon restaurant and her mom is there too, and she hasn't worried where she's been. As Fujiyama has made birthday plans and Fujiyama walks in the moment she says that she's in love with Joe Marshall.
Ooh, sounds scary.
So back at HQ, Captain Roma is pissed off that Peggy and Johnson are dead. Or Peggy's injured and Johnson is dead, and wants Joe and Frank to kill Fujiyama at this point for good. And now drives in his red car again with an Oregon license plate. I thought Joe was from San Diego. So now Joe and Frank climb the fence into...
What did you come under? I'm an undercover cop.
or onto Fujiyama's grounds, and now some more shooting, and now Fujiyama's guys tell him that Joe and Frank are here, as he has Jennifer tied up in the basement, and back to shooting as Frank does some killing. Takes 3 bullets to kill a guy. Funny. And another 3 bullet kill. Now some more shooting and finally facing Fujiyama as he has Jennifer next to him and with a gun, and yeah, he is in love with Jennifer. And I always thought he was in love with Jennifer's mom. Makes a lot of sense why he paid back those restaurant debts and all those birthday presents. But Fujiyama wants to leave the country, and Joe and Frank drop their guns and lets go Jennifer and shoots Frank. Like I said, it takes 3 bullets to kill someone, since Fujiyama was shot once by Frank and gets up and shoots Fujiyama. And no need for the additional 2 bullets. So Frank had a bulletproof vest on, makes sense. So that just leaves Yamashita, and now back at Yamashita's grounds, and now Joe is about to have a katana fight with Jackie Chan here, but Frank shoots him for good to prevent to waste time, which was a good thing. And the guys are alerted, and a whole bunch of shooting, and Joe even kills the only henchwoman he could have banged. Oh well, James Bond would have done it. Now some more shooting, and for the finale and the last 6 minutes of the movie, as Yamashita challenges Joe Marshall, the samurai cop, to a katana sword fight. And it's giving marked for death here, the katana fight between Steven Seagal and Screwface, the Jamaican guy. He was about to do what Seagal did there and marked for death, wow. So back to punching and some katana, and finally breaks something on his body. And now Yamashita wants Joe to kill him in respect with the Bushido code, but Frank stops him.
No, Joe, you're a cop.
So what does Yamashita do? He commits suicide to honor the samurai code. And now the final 2 minutes, we see Joe and Jennifer having sex again on this rock outside his house in the back. And I will skip that again. And that's it, guys. Samurai Cop from 1991. It's a good movie. I liked it. Second time I watched it. Better than the shit movies of today. Even though it's a cassette movie made for the VCR, it's very enjoyable. I liked it. These kinds of movies will probably never be remade ever. There is a sequel which came out in 2015. A little bit of the same cast. I've never seen it. I will someday. Last time I checked it was on Netflix. That's it for me. Check out Samurai Cop, and I will see you soon in the next episode with Speed from 1994 with Keanu Reeves. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Take care. See you soon. Watch away.